out on the sofa, and he's joined by Dan.
Dan Sodergren from Attraction Faction joined us live in the studio to talk about, well, best man speeches. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, that's the idea. Obviously, they're to do with confidence, but obviously they're a very important bit of anyone's wedding. I'm lucky enough to have done several best man speeches, so it's kind of the do's and don'ts, I suppose.
I bet you're great at giving a best man speech, aren't you?
I think I get picked simply because I can talk a lot. And I think,
never
some people...
guess.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
No.
You'd never think of it. So it's not just about looking smart and standing up there. There's some kind of do's and don'ts that you can and can't do, I think.
One of the major probably issues with regards to a best man speech that has every member of the family cringing is giving away secrets, talking about being perhaps a bit too pally towards the groom and revealing secrets that should be perhaps left under wraps.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things. I think as a best man as well, what you can do is you can do all that at the stag do, and kind of get that out your system. When you're actually doing the speech, I mean, one of the things I've said occasionally is, I'm going to do another speech later on, it's by the bar, after 9 o'clock, it gets a little blue. So you can basically just play on the fact you're obviously going to be ruder later on when you've obviously had a few more drinks, but remember the speech is there it's multi-generational. And also, don't include too many anecdotes that other people won't understand, because half the people might not know the groom as well. And as you say, you're not just there just to insult the poor guy. You're maybe there as a best man, not as a worst friend.
What about the length of a speech? What should they be aiming at?
Well, I think if you can bring as much emotion into it as possible, as long as you can hold the crowd and use your emotion. I think a lot of guys sometimes stand there and a little bit shaky, and so they could do 3 or 4 minutes. But if you can hold the crowd, walk up and down, use your body language. It's 90% of what we're going to be saying anyway. 10% is only the words. So really, you can use as long as you want, and definitely ad lib. Don't be too worried about going off your cards, because as soon as you do that, you're going to be looking at your cards too much, worrying too much.
That, interestingly enough, leads on quite nicely to the fact of structuring your speech, in the sense that should you have those cards and give yourself bullet points, or should you be pretty detailed as regards to what your script is going to involve and where you're going to take it?
I've done it both ways, really. One, I had literally an A4 piece of paper in front of me and I kept turning it over, and I thought it felt great. I thought it was brilliant. But actually, when you watch back on the camera, I'm just there shaking and just going and reading and just doing too much reading. A friend of mine, Alan, did a wonderful speech at Carl and Claude's wedding, and he basically just went off bullet points and just ad-libbed, and he brought in props, and he had a hat that he was wearing and all sorts. And I think that's usually the best way to do it. Just have fun with it. Remember, people are there for you. They're not there to kind of pick on you or whatever. It's your moment to look as good as you possibly can. So enjoy it, really.
Do you recommend having a pint beforehand,
or
not?
I was talking to Alan about this before. I definitely think you should drink a little bit. You've got to anyway, because all the other toasts that are going on, and you have to do it. It's a wedding, you've got to. But then don't try to combat that with drinking lots of coffee. Because when you're trying to sober up with lots of coffee, yet again, you get the shakes and the rest of it. My biggest bit of advice is definitely drink a pint of water before you start your speech. Otherwise, you get that nasty kind of froth around your mouth. Never nice.
And if all else fails, slide across the dance floor on your knees. That always goes down well.
Peter K-style, or cry, because basically then anyone lets you get away with anything. Everyone just stars at you.
Things you should never do.
Things you should never do. Never bring up previous girlfriends. It's a classic, and people at the time will say, oh no, it's fine. Literally, revenge is a dish best served cold.
Okay.
And it's a bit late once they've got married, and then you're dishing all the dirt. Maybe, you don't want to instill a divorce, do you, really?
Well, exactly, that's it, and basically, as you say, people will always say it's not a problem, but actually, it's a huge one. Don't swear, of course, or if you do swear, make it very small. And as you said, don't use too many... If you're going to do rude things, make it an aside that kind of grown-up people could get. So you're saying it over your shoulder, and it's a bit of a funny thing, because obviously, there are going to be kids there as well, isn't there? So... I think
you liking your buttonhole, by the way?
I think that makes me look rather smart.
Yeah. It does look rather smart. Have you ever given a best man speech?
I've given Toastmaster speeches, 2 or 3, but they're best left kept well alone. I feel like I've been attacked by a triffid here, but we've got plenty more to come. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, marriage is not a word, it's a sentence, a life sentence. Join us in just a few minutes for some delicious wedding cakes that are almost too good to eat. Almost too good. She'll be tucking well in.